Or the texture. It's a cloth-covered children's book from the early 20th century. The actual book itself was that thick, and it was awful. It was just real boy's own stuff, but very badly written. Even the illustrations were terrible, so I just embodied the cover and threw away the book. Stunning. Anyway, hey chums. Okay, I've listened to the latest Planets. It's outstanding. There's some Australian guy. He hasn't got a YouTube channel, but it's some sort of blog site, and he set out to collect every single version of the Gustav Holst, the Planets, and oops, turn the volume up. I'm not going to do that, but I looked at his recommendations, and I've already gone through this before, so I won't go on about it too much. I bought the one he put at the top of his list, and this was it. Charles Dutoit, Orchestre Symphonique de Montreal, 1987. It is mind-bogglingly great. I cannot recommend this highly enough. Mars, the Bringer of War on this. Oh, God, you can actually hear, the organ. Like, I know there was one in the thing, but usually it's down in the mix. This one, you don't hear it clearly, but you can hear it. You can hear the rumble of it. The Mars on this is it's mind-blowing. It is so powerful. It is great. There's only one track that I find not as good as the others I've heard, and I think it's Mercury, the Winged Messenger, the third part of the thing. Yeah, it takes a little bit too slow for my liking. That's the only complaint. You can hear individual instruments on this that you normally don't. Usually it's all pretty much. And don't get me wrong, I want to get one from the 1950s. I can't remember his name now, the English guy, but I sort of like that soupy thing with old classical records where it has a mood. I'm going to get a moody one. There's one out there they said is really moody and mystical, and that's one I'm going to go and look for next. But this one, for clarity, for power, and for clarity of instruments, woof. Yeah, I agree. It is awesome. And of course, I had to, in my previous videos, I said, I was obsessed with the planets, and I've gone back to it in my old age, and I never tire of it. To me, it's the most perfect piece of music ever. Perfect, beyond belief. It's like 2001, which is already 20 years ago, the movie. It's like it was the 21st century music, but written 100 years before, or sort of thing. And that's why I go back to this. I've always loved this album, and I was into the Planets just before I heard this, and I love this straight away. And it's only now, my old age, I understand why I love this so much, because what they were doing in this album was basically not replicating Holst, but influenced heavily by Holst. 21st century Schizoid Man is sort of their Mars, Bringer of War. I Talk to the Wind is pretty much the second track here. Venus, the Bringer of Peace. Not the same melodies or anything, but like you go from a really heavy track to a very gentle track. Then the next three, well, you can't compare them with other there are 7 pieces on the planets representing the 7 planets that were known at the time when this was made. I think, I don't know how many they know now, but or whatever. Or it's not even really about the planets. It's about astrology. That's why it's so brilliant, because this guy was heavily into astrology, and what we have here is it can be interpreted as, I always think of it as, being an old acid head and hearing the most heavenly music in my own head, which makes this and that, makes these sound like the gibbering of monkeys. But anyway, let's not get into that. So, but then Moonchild, track 4 on here, the one everyone has a problem with. I don't have a problem with it, because when you come to the last track, the power of In the Core of the Crimson King itself is just so much more powerful. So this album sort of starts with Mars, the Bringer of War, and sort of ends with Mars, the Bringer of War, another version type thing, for impact. Track 3 on here, Epitaph, which I absolutely adore, would be the equivalent of Neptune on here. Jupiter, the Bringer of Jollity. Look, I'm not comparing them track by track. I'm merely giving an impression, and that's why I love this. Instantly when I heard it, I just went, well, this sounds something being 18, 19, you don't sort of think too much about those things. And that's why I've always despised this album. I've heard this once when my friend bought it. After I bought the Core of the Crimson King, he bought this. He played it once, and I straight away I didn't hate it, I just didn't like it. I thought it was awful. I thought it was really subpar. There's probably 1 or 2 good bits on here, but this was such an insult to me that the Devil's Triangle, which is that very long track, it's got good bits in it. It's got good bits in it here, but Fripp and company dare to rip off Mars, the Bringer of War, by Holst. And I'm telling you, pal, it just doesn't work. It does not work. It is. If Fripp had written that Mars himself, it would be genius. But it's not genius, because he's either ripped it off or he's covering it, with love. But it just doesn't work for me. It's that's why it's funny, isn't it? And that's the only King Crimson album. I think I've heard this twice in my life, and I'm 71. I think I played all of this once when I first bought it 30 years ago, and I went, yep, I'm right. I didn't like it, and I still don't like it. This I never tired of. Anyway, time to get off, everybody. So anyone out there that wants to get into The Planets by Holst, I highly recommend this one. Decca, West German CD from 87. Superb. Take care now.